Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and today we've got a really interesting update to talk about for Digimon Story Time Stranger. So, if you've been playing this game recently, or you've just been keeping an eye on how Bandai Namco's been supporting it, you probably already heard that the new patch, version 1.0004, just dropped. And honestly, this one changes way more than you might think at first glance. It's not just about bug fixes or minor tweaks. It actually changes how one of the game's most important systems works, and it completely shifts the way players might want to build their teams and approach farming for items and rare drops. So let's break it down together in a chill, conversational way. No overcomplication, just real talk about what this update means, how it affects your gameplay, and some ideas for how you can make the most of it. Now, the biggest thing to pay attention to with this update is something called the bond system. You know that little stat that represents how close you are with your Digimon, the kind of relationship level you build through battles, interactions, and time spent together? That system just got a major buff. Before, bond mainly mattered for evolution and a few subtle combat perks, right? But now, Bandai has expanded what bond actually does in a pretty exciting way. With this new patch, bond isn't just about friendship points or minor emotional flavor anymore. It now directly affects combat performance and your ability to farm better rewards. The devs added new effects that come from having a high bond with your Digimon. The first one is an increase in the chance of triggering something called an extra strike. If you've been playing for a while, you know those extra hits that sometimes happen in combat. They're powerful, but kind of inconsistent. Now, the higher your bond with your Digimon, the more frequently those extra strikes can activate. That means fights where you might have normally needed 2 or 3 turns to finish off an enemy could potentially end faster. It also means that for boss battles, you can get in that extra burst of damage that really adds up over time. But that's not all. They also added a new feature tied to bond that affects your critical rate. So if you've been trying to build your Digimon around strong offensive setups, having a high bond with them is now even more important because it will literally make them crit more often. Criticals have always been one of those stats that separate average builds from dangerous ones, especially if you're trying to optimize your damage per turn output. So by investing time into raising your bond, you're basically powering up your team naturally without having to grind for new gear or abilities. It's like an invisible upgrade system that rewards consistency and loyalty to your core team members. The next big change, and honestly the one that's going to matter the most for people who love farming or hunting rare items, is how bond now affects drop rates. According to the patch details, having a higher bond increases both the general item drop rate and the rare drop rate after battles. That's huge because it means your connection with your Digimon is now directly linked to your farming efficiency. The better your relationship, the better your rewards. But there's one important catch here. Only the Digimon with the highest bond in your current battle team will influence the item drops, so you don't get stacked bonuses from multiple high bond Digimon. It's basically saying, pick your best friend and let them handle the good luck rolls at the end of the battle. That little detail completely changes how you might want to set up your team for different scenarios. Like, let's say you're running through a map where you're trying to farm rare materials or gear. Before this patch, you'd probably just pick your most efficient fighters or the ones that hit the hardest. Now, you might want to swap in your highest bond Digimon even if they aren't your absolute strongest, because they'll make your runs more rewarding in the long run. The smart play might be to focus on building 1 or 2 Digimon with incredibly high bond values, so they can serve as your drop leader when you're farming. It's like designating one as your good luck charm, who makes everything you do just a little more rewarding. If you're wondering how to actually raise that bond effectively, there are a few simple things to remember. The main way is just to keep battling with that Digimon. Having them participate in fights builds bond naturally over time. You can also talk with them during certain in-game interactions and use specific food items in the Digifarm to boost it even faster. So if you've got one partner you really want to focus on, maybe your starter or that one Digimon that's carried you through tough fights, you can give them some extra love and start feeding them consistently. Within a few sessions, you'll notice that bond climbing pretty quickly. Now, all these new bond effects don't just make the game feel more rewarding emotionally, they actually change the math of battle too. Think about it. With more critical hits and more chances for extra strikes, your overall damage potential goes up, which in turn can make even tough encounters feel more manageable. You'll end up spending less time in drawn-out fights, and that means less resource drain on healing or SP items. The pace of combat gets smoother, and your high bond Digimon start feeling like true veterans who have your back every step of the way. It's kind of poetic, honestly. Your long-term partnership is now directly paying off in measurable gameplay benefits. Of course, the update isn't just about the bond system. Bandai also rolled out a series of bug fixes and quality of life improvements that make the game run a lot more smoothly, especially for players on PC and consoles who have been experiencing some issues. One of the most notable fixes is related to the Steam version of the game. Apparently, some players had trouble transferring their save data from the demo version to the full release. That should be resolved now. So if you were stuck redoing progress or unable to load your old save, this patch has your back. They also fixed a handful of progression blocking bugs, and anyone who's played a Digimon RPG knows how frustrating those can be. There were certain situations where players couldn't move forward because of specific dialogue or event triggers not firing properly. For example, there was a bug involving a boss fight with a blue Greymon, and another issue in one of the factorial area sections that caused players to get stuck if they saved in the wrong spot. Those problems should now be fully addressed. On top of that, there were some crash issues tied to opening the Digivice menu or using particular digi-attacks in outer dungeon battles, and those have been stabilized too. And while those might sound like smaller technical things, they really add up to make the overall experience more seamless. You don't have to worry as much about sudden crashes or weird soft locks that ruin your momentum. There were also small visual fixes like correcting HP gauges, text formatting issues, and certain Digimon model adjustments. Nothing dramatic, but they show that the devs are still committed to polishing the game post-launch. So all in all, this update might not have added new story content or brand new Digimon, but what it does add is depth to one of the game's most important systems. The kind of change that doesn't just make you want to jump back in for an hour, it makes you rethink how you play long term. If you've been focusing purely on stats, evolutions, or skills before, now's the perfect time to start paying attention to those bond levels. They're more than just sentimental now. They're a full-on gameplay mechanic that influences multiple parts of your adventure. What's really interesting about this from a design perspective is how it fits thematically. Digimon has always been about partnership, right? That bond between Tamer and Digimon has been at the heart of every story since the early days. So it's kind of fitting that this patch brings that concept back into focus by making your connection actually matter mechanically. You're rewarded for sticking with your partners through thick and thin, and you feel the impact of that loyalty when your Digimon starts critting like crazy or helping you find better items. It's such a natural extension of what Digimon is supposed to be about. Now, if you're wondering what to actually do with this new information, here's a solid strategy to think about. First, identify your most used Digimon, the ones you rely on for story missions, grinding, or boss fights. Pick one of them to be your main bond focus. Make sure they're always in your active party during battles, feed them regularly at the farm, and interact with them whenever the game gives you the chance. You don't need to max everyone's bond right away. That would take ages. Instead, concentrate on making one of them your top tier partner with the highest possible bond level. Um, Once they're your strongest connection, take that Digimon into your farming sessions. Because remember, only the highest bond member in your team affects drop rates. You'll start seeing more rare items appearing, and it feels so satisfying when you realize that your hard work and patience are literally paying off. If you're a numbers kind of player, you'll notice this has a compounding effect over time.